Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. In today's episode, I want to get into the Tamron 28-75 G2. This is the newest version of the 28-75 from Tamron. The original one came out in 2018, and 3 years later, 2021, they came out with the G2. This is the one that I've been playing with for the last couple of weeks, and I want to give you guys my thoughts, what I think this lens is for, who I think this lens is for, because as you guys know, I do have the Tamron 35-150, and I swear up and down that that is the best lens. I'm saying that as a photographer, and that right there should give you a little clue as to who I think this lens is for and how you can get the best out of it. As far as giving you guys some details with this lens, it has a 67mm thread, so if you have filters, 67mm is what you're gonna need for this. So it's a little bit on the smaller side, I suppose, which also goes into the weight, which is 1.2 pounds, because America, and I don't know how much that is in grams, it's like 500 or something, I think, something like that. And it's moisture resistant. They don't call it weatherproof, but moisture resistant. The only thing that you have to check out and be aware of is the USB-C port right there. That one is still exposed to the elements. Technically, it can withstand a little bit of moisture, but one thing that I would probably recommend for Tamron for the next one is create a little rubber plug or something like that. It can't be that expensive to add, and it would just put a lot of people at ease. I live on the West Coast in California, so we don't really deal with too much rain or too much moisture, so this doesn't really bother me, but I can only imagine if you live in an area where it rains a lot, where it snows a lot, where there's a lot of humidity, that could be an issue. I haven't seen anything about it, but I just wanted to mention that little piece right there. And as far as what the USB-C port is for, is to be able to use the Tamron Lens Utility program. So you're able to change what this little button over here does. You can use it for eye autofocus. You can change it to, honestly, I never change it to anything, so I'm not gonna BS you guys, but I know that you can change it for different things. And that's what this is for. That's one reason. The other reason is firmware updates. So these lenses are smart enough to be able to do firmware updates, make fixes after the fact. And I like that because that is very forward thinking. And so that gives you that little option right there to update the firmware. Really nice little additional thing on the lens. Now, one thing that I do want to mention is that this lens does not have stabilization. Personally, doesn't really bother me because I mostly shoot photos, and also on a wider end 28, even 75 is not super telephoto. You really have to have a ton of coffee for this thing to like really be out of focus for you to be shaking it that much. Not only that, most of our mirrorless cameras, because I'm on the Sony system, most of our mirrorless cameras have built-in stabilization in the body. So it's rare where I really feel like I'm getting a ton of shake, and I push these things. I go down pretty low with my shutter speed sometimes, and I'll tuck those elbows in and just really hold it as steady as possible. Or, you know, you can make it all blurry and pretend that you did it on purpose and be an artist. I'm throwing a little shade at those, the blurry photographers. But hey, I actually like some of those, so don't come after me. And another thing that I was looking at, you know, some of the things, it's not parfocal, so as you zoom in or zoom out, it is gonna lose a little bit of focus. But I mean, to me, that's not the end of the world. Usually on my A9, if I'm half pressing, I'm usually half pressing as I'm zooming in or zooming out on my shutter button. So that way it's refocusing as I'm doing whatever I'm doing. So it's not a huge deal to me, but it's something to keep in mind. Now, one thing that I did notice is with the 28-75 versus, let's say, the 35-150, for example, is that the zoom is further away from the camera body. So if I'm shooting like this, the zoom is a little bit further out here, and the focus ring is over here, closest to the camera. So that just leads me to believe that this is made a little bit more for video than it is for photo, because for photo, I feel like I want the zoom to be more accessible, and the focus I never even touch. I always just leave it alone in autofocus. So this makes me believe it's a little bit more for video. That, the fact that it's light, all those little things. I'm not a videographer, but it just leads me to believe that this is more for video, less for photo. I mean, it creates great images, it creates sharp photos, it creates really nice colors. Nothing that I would complain about. I'm not super picky because I know I'm gonna be editing it when I get home anyway and doing our standard presets and all that stuff. So I'm not too focused on, is this lens gonna give me better color, better contrast than this other lens, because I'm gonna play with it anyway. So that part doesn't really bother me. I know that might trigger some of you guys, but that's just the way I feel. I'm gonna go home and play with these images anyway. So I'm not too concerned how it's giving it to me straight out of the camera. That being said, I haven't found any chromatic aberration. I haven't seen any fringing. The blur looks really nice on it. So overall, very satisfied with this for the photo side. And this is I shoot on the A9, so 24 megapixels. I've seen some people shoot with higher megapixel cameras, and they've had nothing but good things to say about the image quality. So Definitely made for newer cameras, newer sensors. So it shows that this lens can handle that higher resolution. Now, one thing that you might say, okay, the 28-75 is nice, it's small, it's light, all that good stuff. How does it compare to, let's say, a 24-70? Am I gonna miss those 4 millimeters? Because for ages, 24-70 has been the standard. So if we're going 28-75 now, we're losing 4 millimeters. Am I gonna miss it? As you're seeing in a couple of the clips right now, I mean, it's not a huge detrimental amount of focal length that you're losing. So to me, it doesn't bother me. Now, if I want something that's wider than 28, if I want 20, if I want 16, if I want 14, I'm gonna be using a super wide angle lens anyway for those super wide angle shots. So this lens is more ideal for those mid-range kind of focal lengths. So 28, 50, 75, obviously, the whole range. If I want super wide, I'm gonna use a 20 to 40. I'm gonna use a 14 to 24, 16 to 28, something that is made to be super wide. So I think the trade-off of losing those 4 millimeters on the back end to save a ton of weight, a good significant amount of weight and size, as you guys are seeing in the comparison video that I did here, it really does speak to this lens as to what it's made. I do think that it's made more for video, but you can get a ton of great qualities out of it for photo as well. And according to some of the paperwork that I was reading, it has a VXD linear motor, which is 2 times faster than before. I can't tell you if it's way faster than the version 1 because I don't have the version 1, but what I can tell you is I've taken it on weddings, engagements, a shoot in downtown LA at night with really low light, and it never let me down. I never felt like, why is this hunting? I remember back in the day, Tamron, Sigma, lenses, they were still figuring it out. They were still the third-party company that came into the party to say, hey, we're here to mess things up. But they just weren't quite there, right? With these lenses, I never, with this lens, especially the 28-75, I never felt like it was hunting. I never felt like it was back focusing. It was always on point when I needed it to be. And like I said, weddings, engagements, shoots at night, it really has performed extremely well. Overall, as far as my take on this lens, who is it for? In my opinion, if I were doing hybrid photo and video, I would probably get the 28-75 and the 70-180 for about the same price as 135-150. If I were a photographer, which I am, I would get the 35-150 and then a super wide to go with it, like a 20-40 or something like that, to give me that extra wide focal length. The reason I say that is if you're a videographer and you put the 35-150 on a gimbal, it's gonna be very heavy. You're probably not gonna use the full range of the 35-150 for the most part. So essentially you're buying something that's a little bit more cumbersome that you're not really gonna get the most use out of. As a videographer, you can use the 28-75 all day. I see videographers every single shoot that we do with this lens, with the 28-75 on their gimbal. Now, if you're shooting a ceremony, you can have the 28-75 on a gimbal and you can use the 70-180 as a safety shot from the back, from the side, wherever you wanna place it, where you could zoom in. And now you have those two angles for the same price as the 35-150. So as a videographer or somebody that shoots photo and video as a hybrid shooter, I would say 28-75, this lens right here, 70-180, so you have that extra zoom, over getting the 35-150. 35-150 if you're a photographer all day, every day. I'm gonna make another video about that lens, why it's my favorite and why I should pretty much just put glue on it and attach it to the camera because it almost never leaves. Anyway, going off on the cost portion, if you guys are watching this video in March of 2024, there is a sale that Tamron is doing and it includes the 28-75 and you're gonna be getting $100 off. So right now the normal price is $899, so you'll be getting it for $799. So if you guys are in the market for a nice medium light lens, if you shoot video, if you shoot photo and video, this is what I would recommend. Get yourself a 28-75, 70-180 for the long end, and I mean, that's pretty much all you need, and they're both extremely light lenses. I've posted a couple of videos about the 70-180. If you guys want to check them out, I'll put them at the end of this video, and I'll also put a link for the 35-150. Anyway, guys, if you enjoyed the video, if you have played around with this lens, have you shot with it, let me know what you guys think about it. Let me know any points that I touched on that you want to expand on, anything that I missed. Listen, I'm not perfect, so let me know anything that you guys would like for me to follow up on. Also, I can always make a follow-up video. And if you made it this far, you made it to the end, hi, thank you. Thank you so much for sticking around to the end. If you would like to subscribe, I would really appreciate that because we're really trying to grow the channel. As you guys can see, we've been posting very consistently and I'll be posting another one this week. Thank you guys so much for watching.